A soul wound refers to a deep and often hidden emotional or spiritual injury that affects a person at the core of their being. Unlike physical wounds that heal with time, soul wounds can persist for years and impact various aspects of a person's life, including their relationships, self-perception, behavior, and overall well-being. These wounds can result from a range of experiences such as trauma, abuse, loss, betrayal, or profound emotional pain. They often stem from events or circumstances that challenge a person's sense of safety, belonging, or worthiness. Soul wounds can manifest in different ways, including feelings of emptiness, shame, guilt, fear, or disconnection. They may also influence patterns of behavior, such as self-sabotage, avoidance, or unhealthy coping mechanisms like abusing alcohol and drugs. Healing a soul wound typically involves addressing the underlying causes and working through the associated emotions and beliefs. This process may include therapy, spiritual practices, guidance, and deep self-reflection. By acknowledging, exploring, and integrating these wounds, we can move towards greater healing, resilience, and wholeness in our lives. I have personal experience with how profoundly life-changing it was to heal an old soul wound. Hi, I'm Patty Blue Hayes, author, coach, and your guide to blossoming beyond heartbreak and cultivating hope as you sow the seeds of healing. First, let me share the theory of soul retrieval. It's a concept found in various spiritual and shamanic traditions where it's believed that a part of your essence or spirit can become fragmented or lost due to traumatic experiences, emotional wounds, or other life challenges. Here's an example of how it works and its history. Imagine you're going through a tough time, like a difficult breakup or the death of a loved one. According to this belief, a piece of your soul might splinter off as a way to protect itself from the pain. It's like your spirit's way of saying, this is too much for me to handle right now, so I'm going to tuck this part away until I'm ready to deal with it. What often happens, though, is that we don't return to address that wounded part of the soul. And guess what happens? More life events that the soul fragments from for protection. And then one day something happens where you absolutely cannot deny the agony of the soul. Your insides can feel twisted inside out. Time and your orientation to reality are shattered. And maybe even never having heard the words before, you realize you're in the dark night of the soul. Shamans or spiritual healers in various cultures, like indigenous tribes or ancient traditions, have developed practices to help retrieve these lost parts of the soul. The shaman might journey into the spiritual realms using rituals, chants, or ceremonies to connect with these fragmented parts and invite them back into the person's being. The idea is that by bringing these lost pieces back into alignment with the rest of your spirit, you can feel more whole, balanced, and empowered to heal from past traumas and move forward in life. It's like finding missing puzzle pieces and finally completing the picture of who you are meant to be. While soul retrieval might sound a bit mystical or esoteric, for many people like myself, it's a deeply healing and transformative experience. I'll share what my experience was. I attended a small retreat led by a spiritual teacher in Ojai, California. I was a bit skeptical when I signed up and even on the drive there because I'd done so much work on myself over the years after my marriage ended, but I had what I called a soul stone. Like a kidney stone, it would flare up on occasion and I'd be sucked into a rip current of deep pain from the loss. It seemed like no matter what I did, I couldn't get rid of it. I desperately wanted to, because I wanted to live a life of pure contentment, peace, and joy despite the losses. Each attendee at the small retreat was guided to have their own unique experience by thoughtful questions, prompts to consider, and creating physical representations of the issue in the art studio, and by completely disconnecting with the outside world, our phones and social media. I learned how ethereal the soul truly is during that retreat. My soul seemed much like a feral cat you might find in the woods, fearful to come out of hiding, even though it's starving and can smell the food you're offering. With patience and heart-to-heart nonverbal communication, the soul cat emerges. All barriers removed, it nudges up against you, purring with delight that you've crossed paths in the dense forest and been reunited. For those 3 days, I allowed myself to be guided by my soul and heart space. I put my mind, thoughts, logic, ego aside and tuned into my intuition. What transpired was magical. Through the physical representation I'd made from found objects in the art studio, it became clear that the painful energy was of a wounded bride. It was then revealed that the pain from the wounded bride was the same one I felt at 13 years old when my family was fragmented by my parents' divorce. At 13, I didn't have the coping skills to deal with my emotions, and so as self-protection, a part of my soul retreated into the shadows for safety. At 14, I was drinking alcohol and looking for love in all the wrong places. The wound was reopened when I was going through my own divorce, and that soul stone brought that old pain to the surface, splitting open the healing I'd worked so hard to attain. And guess what I did? I numbed the pain with alcohol and searched for love in all the wrong places. The healing process then took on a life of its own. My 13-year-old self and my 46-year-old self greeted each other like old friends meeting after years of not communicating, relieved to see that they were okay after all they'd been through. These parts of myself reciprocated support and love. The wounded part of my 13-year-old soul felt safe to come out of the forest. Together, these fragmented soul parts danced through me like fairies, guiding the physical me to take actions that symbolically completed the reunification of those wounded parts. From that day, I have not had the sharp stabbing pain of the soul stone, ever. Please help me continue to create these videos by subscribing to my channel if you find this content valuable. If this resonates with you, I've researched a few of the more well-known teachers in this work. Sandra Ingerman is a prominent, respected teacher in the field of shamanism, spirituality, and healing. She's known for her work as a shamanic practitioner, teacher, and author, with a focus on soul retrieval and shamanic healing practices. Sandra's approach to soul retrieval and shamanic healing is grounded in the belief that all healing comes from within, and that we have the innate ability to heal ourselves with the support of spiritual allies, guides, and the wisdom of nature. She's authored 10 books and conducts workshops and trainings. She's inspired many people to embark on their own spiritual journeys. Maybe you'll be one of them. Tom Cowan is a renowned shamanic practitioner with a deep specialization in Celtic visionary and healing techniques. His work uniquely blends universal core shamanism with traditional European spirit lore, crafting spiritual practices that aim to heal and enrich both personal lives and the lives of others. He holds a doctorate in history, which adds a rich academic foundation to his spiritual practices. His extensive studies and teachings with the Foundation for Shamanic Studies further solidify his expertise in the field. Alberto Villoldo is a psychologist and medical anthropologist who has studied shamanic healing practices in the Amazon and Andes for over 25 years. He's the founder of the Four Winds Society and author of several books on shamanism and energy medicine. I found his book, Shaman, Healer, Sage, to be quite insightful and supports what many spiritual healers teach, that healing is an inside job. It's up to us to find the way back to our whole luminous selves. the soul we came into the world with. Michael and Sandra Harner are the founders of the Foundation for Shamanic Studies. Christina Pratt is a shamanic practitioner and teacher who has synthesized her lifelong studies of Ecuadorian, Tibetan, Tamang, and African shamans. Hank Wesselman was an anthropologist and shamanic practitioner who has written extensively about his experiences with soul retrieval and shamanic healing in his books, including the Spirit Walker trilogy and The Bowl of Light. If you are seeking to emerge from that dark night of the soul, please look at the books, articles, and courses that these teachers offer. There have been many times that I've looked back on my healing journey and wished I'd known something sooner or could have had that sought-after aha moment that sparks immediate and lasting change. Well, I never had those aha moments. I had a lot of uh-oh moments. I had bumps and twists, zigs and zags, and as much as I'd longed for the healing time to have been abbreviated, it all came to me in perfect, divine timing. If I'd heard about soul retrieval in year 2, I might have rejected it as being too woo-woo, but in year 5, I was ready for it. You know the expression, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Maybe those names I've mentioned are appearing for you right now. Remember, you're on a journey of healing and transformation. The seed does not become a blossom overnight.